I'll be taking my first look at v1400 for Forsaken Frontiers. This update just dropped, so we're going to take a quick look at it now and do a more deep dive of the new stuff throughout the week. Because there's a lot of stuff here that got added. There's a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to pull up the patch notes and we're going to take a look at it. The biggest things to look at is that there's a new map, a new entity, and a lot of other things, but we'll go in order. Holiday season. Command recognizes the importance of maintaining certain pre-winter traditions. The Metro carriage has been authorized for limited seasonal modifications. So it looks like we're going to get some holiday decorations, kind of like how on release we had the Halloween stuff. Looks like we're going to get some holiday stuff. Also, it's interesting that they called it Metro carriage instead of just train. That's new. String lights now provide additional illumination. Cool. Decorated tree serves as a reminder of the world before. Reminder of the world before is interesting. Way to put that. Presents have been distributed to acknowledge workforce dedication. So we have our own Forsaken Frontiers pizza party type thing. Some traditions survive even in eternal winter. Eternal winter. I think that was in the store page description, but something to keep in mind for v1400 is that Maylene has been talking about putting a lot of hints towards the lore in v1400 because there hasn't been much going on for the story behind Forsaken Frontiers and what's actually going on in the world. Well, at least explicitly speaking. Maylene has been saying that there's a lot of stuff to actually look at and lore to figure out from what's already in the game, but they've decided to make it a bit more straightforward here in v1400, so people who are into stories and figuring out lore and all that, v1400 is going to be a good one for that. And I think we're going to see some of it here in the patch notes as well as when we get going and actually playing. That's part of the reason why I'm going to be playing a lot of v1400 tomorrow, because I'm going to be trying to figure all that out as well. Anyway, like I said, new location, or as they say, new operational zone. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which is based out of Colorado. The Entity Containment Division has authorized workforce access to a newly secured military installation. Command reminds all personnel that this facility is classified as maximum risk. We've seen, so this is the bunker location. We've seen that it is placed between the hospital and the tunnels, so we should expect that this is a higher tier location with a danger and loot level above hospital and probably similar to tunnels. It looks like this new location introduces hazards. So there's going to be active landmines, remain armed and lethal. Security systems continue their endless vigil, guarding valuable resources. Interesting. So maybe we're going to get some like alarm doors similar to the hospital. Wonder why these resources are valuable. Reinforced blast doors grown under the weight of time. So like the actual Cheyenne Mountain complex does have blasted doors. This is a real place, so it seems like the bunker is based on the Cheyenne Mountain complex. Okay, well I know that because she told me that, but yeah, we're gonna... it's a thing. Narrow maintenance corridors offer no escape from what hunts within. So maybe... I wonder what that means, like why this was explicit. Oh, this is a facility hazard. Okay, I guess we'll see what that means. This must be something different than just regular hallways or something. Alright. Salvageable resources. Okay, so this is the list of the new scrap, it seems, but I wonder why they decided to call it salvageable resources. Ammunition storage containers. Preserved canned provisions, military issue canteens, security clearance cards, gas mask filtration units, weapon magazines, optical attachments, and combat ration packages. I feel like this is a very different spread of loot than we're used to seeing. I remember people, when this game first came out, they were asking about weapons in Forsaken Frontiers and being able to fight back. So like the existence of some of this stuff, like ammunition storage stuff, military things, I don't know, weapon magazines, optical attachments. Maybe it's something they've tried before, you know. I mean, this is like a military installation, so I guess it makes sense that there's military stuff. Oh, here, look. Cheyenne Mountain. The name was whispered reverently in those early days, symbol of hope amidst the chaos. Rumors of a fortified base where the ECD's best and brightest were working tirelessly. Oh. Rumors of a fortified base where the ECD's best and brightest were working tirelessly to turn the tide. Turn the tide, okay. Amidst the chaos. A symbol of hope. Early days. So this is probably before everything went like real bad, I suppose. Turn the tide means that the humans were losing, I guess, at some point. We clung to those stories like a lifeline. The thought of our protectors out there, fighting for us, keeping us going through the darkest times. I wonder who this quote is coming from, because it doesn't sound like it's someone from the ECD if they're talking about the ECD as other people. Anyway, but still, as the days turned to weeks, a flicker of doubt began to grow. What was happening behind those reinforced doors? Why hadn't we heard more? The unanswered questions hung heavy in the stale air of the metro, even as we continued to hold onto the fragile hope that Cheyenne Mountain represented. It sounds like a metro, huh? It sounds like people were down in... The metro is just like for regular people. I have mentioned before that like the existing maps kind of just have clothes all over the floor. Like metro, tunnels, hotel. Which implies that a lot of people were probably holing up here during like the eternal winter, or at least whenever entities started like taking over or whatever. So this is probably the point of view of a civilian or something. Assuming that they're not part of the ECD or part of another government branch. And they've decided to like record their thoughts or journal them or something. I don't know. Let's see. But yeah, so we'll look into this a bit more. Like I said, this is the first time we're actually getting some like concrete lore drops, right? Because everything else up until this point has kind of just been something that you can figure out or try to deduce from what's in the game, but now we're getting actual like logs right here, you know, hints, everything. This one still falls under like visual storytelling and kind of figuring stuff out, but you know, we'll see what the actual lore drops tell us. Urgent ordnance advisory. Okay, well, active ECD landmines. So we're going back to the facility hazards. Command issues immediate warning to all workforce members regarding active explosive devices within Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Oh, one thing too. What was happening? Why hadn't we heard more? This assumes, or this kind of implies that the ECD lost control over the bunker, which is probably why we're going back in there to loot. That's at least the level 1 assumption. We'll see if we find out more about what's happened there. And if we go back to like the video that they dropped in media of like the little video of Private James Cooper, things didn't look too good. Things didn't look too good. So if you haven't seen that, go on the Discord real quick. But yeah. And the fact that the ECD even knows about these explosive devices, probably, you know, I mean, they were there before, and they should know that they're still active. But anyway, I wonder if enemies will also be able to set off hazards. Kind of hope so. But then again, if they did, would they even get affected by it? Probably not. Critical safety protocol. Military-grade explosive devices remain armed throughout the facility. Okay. Devices maintain full operational status, exercise extreme caution during navigation. So we have moved away from adding holes to the game, and we are now just going to be stepping on landmines, which, you know, thematically speaking, I guess this makes sense, but why would the ECD set up landmines in their own base, you know? Not sure what that's about. Because you would think that, like, if this is an ECD base, they wouldn't need protection inside or whatever, or maybe this is just common practice in military bases. I don't know, I'm not military, You just have active landmines and only the active personnel are supposed to know where's what and what's what. Detonation results in immediate termination of personnel within lethal radius. Lethal? Secondary injury risk extends beyond primary blast zone. So if you step on it, you die. Otherwise, you probably just get hurt, maybe downed. Secondary injury risk beyond primary blast zone. Clinical way of saying, even if you survive the initial boom, you're still probably screwed. Gotta admire their thoroughness, I guess. Does that mean you'll die with a timer or something? Maybe you got a med kit up. I guess we'll see. This is... Gotta admire their thoroughness. So who... I don't know which perspective this is. Probably not someone from the ECD or maybe someone lower rank. I don't know. Anyway. New entity type update. ECD Forsaken. So... We've known that the Forsaken, like the way Forsaken worked prior to v1400, has been a placeholder. So it looks like the Forsaken are finally getting their update here in v1400. So it should work a little bit differently. I was tipped off a little bit to know what the new mechanics should be around this, but we're gonna see it for ourselves for the first time. I never actually seen them in action. It's kind of the premise or whatever. Anyway. The entity always finds those who serve it best. Entity? The entity? This is Dead by Daylight. Always finds those who serve it best. Interesting. Interesting. That's probably important. Command alerts all workforce members of a highly dangerous... Command alerts all workforce members of a highly dangerous entity classification. Infected ECD ground forces. These former personnel represent a severe containment risk. Infected, so we're that's interesting. Are we getting new infection mechanic? ECD ground forces. So that means Forsaken were previously ECD ground forces. This is some new lore. You know, I've seen a lot of people at least talking about the entities in the game. I feel like the Forsaken kind of gets overlooked, but I think we're going to be kind of forced to think about them now. But it's really funny thinking that the lore behind Forsaken has been overlooked up until now, considering that the game is called Forsaken Frontiers. But at the same time, we hardly ever see them, except on Hospital or if you're playing Nightmare mode. And then they start spawning on other maps, but yeah. I mean, for people who are playing Bunker, it seems like we're gonna see them quite a bit here. But that's also something to think about. Why do the Forsaken spawn on other maps anyway? Critical advisory. Contamination warning, here's the infection. Avoid physical contact at all costs. Bite wounds will result in immediate infection. Compromised personnel will be subject to recycling if vaccine proves ineffective. So we are getting an infection mechanic here in v1400, which is really funny timing to think about considering that Nuclear Nightmare came out and has that infection mechanic. And I told her that as soon as this gets puts out, it's going to be compared to Nuclear Nightmare. I'm not doing that any favors by mentioning that right now. But, you know, infection mechanics aren't unique to Nuclear Nightmare or Forsaken Frontiers or anything. I did tell her that she's basically just adding Nemesis to the game. Nemesis is her favorite killer in Dead by Daylight. Anyway. Auditory warning. New vocalization patterns identified and cataloged. Interesting. So this probably means that there's going to be new sound effects to indicate that a Forsaken is nearby, which is fine to me. We'll see if silent Forsaken are still going to be an issue, but that's not I don't know if that was a sound design thing or more of a Unity thing. And I'm curious to see how they've decided to go about that, but that just seems to be a limitation of the engine as far as I can tell. Because you can give people like loud noise or sound effects, but if it doesn't trigger, then there's not much you can do about that. But we'll see. Urgent. Radio protocol. Entity operates compromised ECD communication devices. Entity operates compromised ECD communication devices. All unauthorized transmissions are to be disregarded. Do not attempt to decipher or respond. Does that mean, like, if we use walkies, that they're gonna be able to mess with our communications on them? And we're supposed to be able to tell the difference between them? I'm a little confused by what this sentence means. But, do not attempt to decipher or respond. Well, I think people are gonna do that. Anyway, physical analysis. Entity exhibit. Oh, okay. So entity is probably talking about just the Forsaken here, because that's kind of like how this reads here as well. Entity exhibits severe erratic motor function and unnatural twitching movements. I think this we already knew, at least, because that's kind of consistent with the Forsaken we've seen so far. All that training, all those resources poured into creating the perfect soldiers, and in the end, it just made them better puppets for the enemy. The entity knows how to explain our strengths against us. See, there's a difference between just calling entity and the entity. Maybe the entity containment department is talking specifically about the entity, because it's the entity that needs to be contained, and more so than the other ones, it seems. Perfect soldiers, I'm thinking of, like, you know, Captain America type deal, or like Akame got killed type situation where something probably went wrong. I wonder how they tried to do this, though. I wonder if that has to do with the infection, like if maybe the infection was intentional or something. And then they lose control over it, or not entirely sure. But I'm sure we'll learn a bit more about all that. This is a fun one. This is a fun one that I've been trying to hold back on. Personnel notice. Rank transcendence procedure. So this is going to be for people who want to continue ranking up after Overseer. Command has authorized implementation of advanced rank progression systems for Overseers. The data deck transcendence procedure allows qualified personnel to achieve elevated status through voluntary rank recalibration cycles. So they're adding a prestige system to Forsaken Frontiers, so you can level up or rank up even after Overseer. So the implementation procedure works as follows. Procedure access granted upon reaching Overseer classification, so Overseer is the minimum requirement for this. Authorized personnel may initiate transcendence via the data deck interface. Okay. Procedure effects. You complete rank progression reset, so you go back down to Servant when you do this. Implementation of ascending numerical designation. So you'll be like Servant 1, or if you're Transcend twice, Servant 2, 3, etc. Updated status display on information monitoring systems, so you can keep track of what transcendence level you are on. And elevated workforce authority with each successful cycle. Huh. I wonder what that means, elevated workforce authority. Is that just, like, is the authority just this? But with each successful cycle. That's interesting. I wonder if does that mean that there's like a benefit to actually doing this other than it being cosmetic? I don't know what this means, but we'll find out. We chased the allure of elevated status, blind to the strings that pulled us ever onwards. The promise of power drew us like moths to a flame, never suspecting the fire that awaited us at the journey's end. You know, so is this vanity metric a distraction? Is it just a way to get us to collect more money? I'm still not even entirely sure why we're paying off debt in the first place. That's like the core thing for Forsaken Frontiers. Like, why are we paying off debt? And is it even to the ECD, or like why are we in debt to the ECD in the first place? Why is it? I don't know. But there seems to be quite a bit to unpack here. So I'll just tab that in my brain for later. Let's see. Moving on. ECD data deck firmware update v5.1. So there's gonna be changes to the data deck. Attention workforce. By order of command, all data deck units are now required to update to firmware version 5.1. Okay. Order of command, huh? Required to update. This critical update integrates deck tape functionality into your device's systems, allowing for the playback of ECD approved audio recordings through the newly implemented tapes section. So this is going to be a new like log system, deck tapes. It also shows that the ECD is kind of in control of your data deck, I guess, or what's allowed on it. Approved audio recordings. This enhancement to your data deck will improve training efficiency and ensure proper dissemination of vital survival information. So I think this is saying that there's now gonna be a tutorial of sorts available on your data deck, because I know that Maylene was working on a way to help people understand how to play the game better, and the initial like intro cutscene that was eventually taken out in v1312 was both outdated and people weren't really reading it, or maybe not understanding it. So we're gonna see what the new tutorial is like. I know she's been working on this, but I haven't actually listened to the tapes myself. So yeah, we're gonna go do that. There's also tapes to find throughout the locations as well, in addition to the training tapes. Oh, I guess that's coming up, so we'll get to that later. Anyway, ECD Workforce Training Series, aka the Forsaken Frontiers tutorial, the long-awaited. All data deck units have been preloaded with the complete ECD Workforce Training Series deck tapes. These essential recordings contain basic navigation and safety protocols, entity encounter guidelines, resource management, and supply run best practices. We're just finding every way to not call the loot scrap, huh? But this is interesting. Now we're looking at an official categorization for the loot that we pick up on the map. They're called supplies. So why are we gathering supplies, and why are we using it to pay off debt? What are the supplies for? Like, of course, the first thought is that it's toward like surviving the apocalypse, which is apparently entity driven, or driven by the entity, or that's like the assumption that's going on here. And I kind of want to go back to this salvageable resources. So these are supplies as well. I wonder what the ECD or whoever needs for the, or what they need with that, or why they need those. I wonder if it actually is effective, but if it was, then how did Cheyenne get taken over in the first place? Well, probably because of Forsaken, huh? It was probably hard to take over Forsaken, especially since the Forsaken were ECD ground forces. Cheyenne Mountain was probably where they were making these super soldiers, which is probably why there's a lot of Forsaken there, since the ground forces turned into them. Maybe Private James Cooper from the media teaser got turned into a Forsaken. I guess we'll see. Anyway, this is good. I think, you know, one of the hard parts of playing Forsaken Frontiers is learning what to do. This is an opportunity to do that, which is sick. So we'll see how effective they are as someone who knows how to play the game. Discovered deck tapes. So like I was saying earlier, you'll be able to find more deck tapes, and this is likely where a lot of the lore is going to come into play. Command acknowledges the existence of additional deck tapes throughout ECD controlled territories. Wait a minute. ECD controlled territories is kind of interesting. So these locations that we're going to are controlled by the ECD. That's not exactly like information that I've been operating with lore-wise in my head, so this is something to unpack as well. I'm kind of saying that out loud, so I make sure to go back and look over this and kind of, you know, do my Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia type deep dive, connecting all the red strings or whatever. But it's kind of a lot right now, so it's not something I'm going to do off the cuff. Survivors are encouraged to collect and report any discovered tapes for analysis and preservation. Interesting. Okay. Note, the discovery of additional deck tapes must be reported to your sector's command representative immediately. Unauthorized possession of recording devices is strictly prohibited. Command representative Your sector's command representative. The ECD might be, well, you know, the ECD is like a government branch, at least that's the assumption. And sometimes when we think about the ECD and what we're doing here in our playthroughs, at least for me, you know, I don't really think about other groups doing the same thing, but this kind of just implies that we're not the only people on the train or metro carriage, as they say here. So that, you know, there's probably a more complex system going on and more groups of survivors or whatever we're called going out and collecting supplies for the ECD. Command representative, huh? Okay, we'll unpack that later. Anyway, known issues resolved. Fixed several data deck category highlighting bugs. Wasn't even aware there were any. The data deck now remembers the last selected category instead of defaulting to the inventory. You know, which actually isn't even a thing I noticed until Maylene pointed this out. But that's cool. And I think that's going to be cool, especially now with the deck tape system. There might actually be a reason to be on a screen other than the main one that shows your backpack and equipment. Reminder. The Entity Containment Division maintains strict control over all information storage devices. Tampering with data deck firmware or attempting to create unauthorized recordings will result in immediate processing. Security violations of this nature are grounds for nullification. Immediate processing. I wonder what the difference is between processing and termination. This also means that whatever information we have is distributed directly from the ECD other than, you know, the tapes that we find. At least that's the main assumption. I don't know what these deck tapes were made for or where they come from. Or why unauthorized possession of them would be prohibited. Like, why does the ECD need to know about this? To the point where it's prohibited. Nullification is also an interesting choice of words. I'd imagine that these words are intentional. But anyway, distant sound system. We've created a dynamic audio system that realistically muffles and transforms sounds based on distance, okay? Instead of simply lowering the volume, distant events now sound appropriately muffled and echo through the environment, creating a more immersive experience. Okay, we'll see how that works. Currently supported, landmine detonations. Hear muffled explosions echo through Cheyenne Mountains corridors. Oh. Okay, so it's just for the landmines currently, so we'll see how the landmines work with this new system. And it says here, note, the distant audio system is still in development. Support for additional sound events will be added in future updates. This one just strikes me as a dev note, but we're still gonna pin it just in case. Why is the distant audio system still in development in this ECD controlled territory? Might be relevant to the lore. This is one of those things where, you know, I've been saying before, like when we think about lore stuff from a game that doesn't have a lot of explicit tells, it's kind of fun to include things that are game mechanics or just game development things into the theories, because this is where like you can get real creative with it. Whether or not it actually holds is a different thing, but I think that when it comes to like coming up with lore theories and stuff, it's more important to come up with a fun theory that you can support rather than being right, if that makes sense. Like I think it's more fun when there's theories that are supported with evidence rather than figuring out if it's correct or not. So I'm hoping that people will come up with some more explicit theories and stuff. I'll make a Forsaken Frontiers lore video at some point to show people what I mean. But yeah, because there's a lot of nuggets here, but I don't think it's as fun to just kind of point out nuggets as it is to kind of try or take a stab at putting them together. I think that's where it gets really, really fun and kind of shows what kind of vision people can have. Speaking of lore, new story/lore features. Added a hidden narrative sequence this is part of the reason why tomorrow's stream is going to be a lot longer. I'm going to try and find this narrative sequence. I doubt I'm going to find it tonight because, you know, I'm just going to take a first look and kind of naturally play, but tomorrow I'm going to be intentionally looking for this. So, yeah. If you want to find people who are intentionally looking for this, you probably just go watch Tato or SQ, who are super deep diving the lore much more than I am. So they're probably loading up the game, and this is probably the first thing they're going to try and do, the narrative sequence. But it's going to be something I do tomorrow, unless I accidentally find it tonight. Anyway, and added a new low probability director's speech. And again, this is going to be something I do tomorrow. I'm not going to sit in the metro carriage to do this tonight. I kind of just want to go play on the bunker for a little bit. 1988, 1992. The years blend together in a haze of uncertainty. What if the key to my salvation lies not in the events I remember, but in the gaps between them? So 1988 is the year that the Eternal Winter started, according to the store page, and 1992 is the year according to our data deck. But whether or not these are accurate, like whether or not this is when the events of Forsaken Frontiers, the game, actually takes place, is a whole other thing. And that's kind of a big question that I need to answer and figure out. Because whenever I talk lore stuff with Maylene, she always asks me, what time do you think it is in game? Obviously she's not telling me what it actually is, but she's hinting real hard that this is super important, so this is going to be something I look into. Because, you know, and one of the big giveaways, too, of what time it might be is, you know, the maps themselves, the locations. Like, if the Eternal Winter happened in 1988, then why are, like, the Metro Hotel Hospital so run down currently? Did they get that run down in in 4 years by 1992? I'm assuming that this is going to be a lot later, or a lot, you know, after the initial apocalyptic events, but that's all I got right now. I don't have any specific time frames in mind yet. And we got a whole list of changes and bug fixes. We'll go over them briefly. Changes. Installed a new camera, clock in the train. You guys can go ask SQ about why that's relevant. Adjusted the scaling of remaining loot value for better balance. Interesting. Adjusted the scaling of remaining loot value. Oh, okay. I do remember SQ coming into the stream saying that the minimum remaining loot value that a location will ever reach is 25% rather than 15, so this will be pretty interesting. And I wonder if it goes down a bit lower. But yeah, that's cool. Cost of hotel reduced from $200 to $150. I like this. I don't think hotel is worth $200. At the same time, I know that, you know, Maylene and Dio are working super hard on reworking the hotel as well. Maybe B as well. I'm not entirely sure what B's role is on the Maiden Fairyland team, but I don't want to leave B out of the conversation. The Maiden Fairyland team is working on the hotel layout, but for now I think $150 cost is a good placeholder. There's also another change that will make hotel a bit better, and it's this. Increase the maximum amount of cells that can generate at locations. So 480 is no longer the max amount of cells. It's increased even more. So that means more loot, and just by default, a bigger map is just an overall nerf to enemies. So if people feel like enemies are still oppressive in v1312, v1400 should adjust that now. Now that doesn't mean that it's going to be free, because if enemies still spawn towards near the train, you're still going to have to get past them. But once you get past them, that just means that you have a huge map to explore. So for people who have trouble dealing with early enemies, get used to learning how to run past them. Like, use your door stuns, go buy a stun light, lock your doors, figure it out. It's very playable. You just need to play a bit more aggressive. I actually think hiding is not very optimal most of the time for that reason. Like, if you hide near an enemy, they're just gonna stay near you, especially since their patrol speed is slower. But yeah, outpace them, go crazy in the map. Adjusted cell generation. Batches now generate in sets of 30, previously 40. I don't know enough about coding to know why this is important, but this is cool to know. Some tech stuff, I guess. I have seen it in action. We're gonna see how it looks in live. Increase the number of elevators generated in locations. Okay, that's cool. You know, for people who prefer playing for elevator rather than running back to the train, this is probably good. You know, we'll see if the increased number of elevators matches the increased amount of cells. Increased batch generation speed. This probably has to do with that. So maps should load in a lot faster now. You know, the part where it says like generating cells. It does go a lot faster, at least from what I've seen in testing. Improved train station entrance, cell activation, and deactivation code. Okay. Cool. Good job, Maylene. Added tracking for completed debt cycles. This is cool. I'll show what this is. It's when you turn on the speedrun timer, so people who hop into like my stream or a run will know what cycle I'm on immediately. So I'll probably be running with this on at all times now moving forward. Improvements to data deck options interface, we'll take a look at that. Added a new gameplay option to toggle the visibility of the crosshair. Okay, so, you know, Forsaken Frontiers is already minimal as far as its heads-up display goes, and now you can just kind of have almost no heads-up display with this one. So this will be cool for, like, aesthetic type shots. Added new pickup sounds. Cool. I'll try to keep an eye out for I mean, new pickup sounds is probably, you know, for the new resources / supplies, so we'll see what those sound like when we pick them up. Added new locker sounds. The story behind this is really funny, so we're gonna check out the locker sounds. Apparently the previous locker sounds was the only non-custom asset in the game prior to this, but since it got pointed out, Maylene worked really hard on making sure that this was a good one, so we're gonna take a look at that. Increased noise travel distance from the alarm doors, so a nerf to alarm doors. I'm assuming on hospital and probably on bunker, I'm not entirely sure, but definitely on hospital. I think alarm doors have been way too free even when you kick them, so I think this is fine. And plus you could always use bolt cutters if you don't want to set off alarm doors, so sure. Removed a duplicate director speech, wasn't even aware there was one. I'm going to be turning director speech on again, by the way. Updated director speeches to play based on a chance percentage system. Okay, so it's not... I wonder what it was on then. It might have just been sequential if I had to guess. Increase the distance and this... Okay, well this is important because of the low probability of a new director message, if I remember correctly, earlier here. I don't entirely remember what it is. I'm actually getting kind of hungry. I probably should have ate before this, but I was about to eat right before. Like, I was about to leave my computer, and then I saw that Maylene dropped v1400, and I'm like, oh dang, okay, I'm gonna play instead. Anyway. Increase the distance entity sounds travel, allowing you to hear them sooner. So that goes back to the whole thing about enemies being quiet. We'll see how well this works. Minimum remaining loot value has been changed from 15% to 25%. So, yep. Oh wait, I wonder, so this probably goes both ways, adjusting the scaling of removing loot value. Or remaining loot value, so it probably goes down at a different rate and probably goes back up at a different rate than v1312. Excited to see that. Removed collision from electronic boxes. Electronic boxes? Okay, we'll have to see what that means. Fixed an issue where cells could generate inside the hospital elevator. Good. This has ended quite a few of my solo runs. And also where Conchas got stuck once. Shout out to Conchas. Improved character textures for better clarity. Okay. Fixed incorrect rotations on loot items. So apparently the loot items weren't supposed to be in a fixed position every time. They were supposed to be randomly rotated. So we're gonna see loot look a bit more crazy in v1400. Removed the ability to jump onto certain furniture that could break the game. Good, I saw a lot of people getting stuck on furniture in v1312. I'm sure people will find new ways to get stuck in v1400. Fixed safe spot in Metro Mega Cell. Okay, I'm assuming the Mega Cell is the new one. Oh, there was a safe spot where, I think on the vertical drop, where you can stand and then you can keep the butcher or whichever enemy's hostage, so it looks like you can't do that anymore. Glow stick is now cracked. That's gonna be one of my YouTube titles when I say that the glow stick is now meta. What this means is that you can crack the glow sticks rather than them just being on at first. So yeah. Toggling the lantern no longer transmits noise. You know, I wasn't even aware that the lantern even made noise from turning it on and off, because I would always turn the lantern on at the beginning and then never turn it off after, since it was just infinite light source anyway. But, oh well, can't exploit this anymore, because in v13.12 there was an exploit where if you were under a desk or in a hiding spot, you can toggle a lantern or infinitely reel a flashlight, and it will aggro the enemies without having them hit you. So this is an exploit that was removed, rather than a buff to a lantern. Well, I guess it goes both ways, it's just a change. Added a contextual action prompt to picking up dropped backpacks. So when you mouse over a dropped backpack, it'll show that you're actually supposed to pick them up. I guess people have been just left-clicking backpacks and not picking them up rather than holding them like you have to. So this is to help people, inform people that you have to hold to pick them up. I kind of wish a contextual action prompt was added to the bolt cutters as well. It doesn't seem like there was one, but maybe in the future. Added a 20% chance for the radio to play the community-made song Clocks by Tato when cycling through tracks. Maylene showed me what this song was. Shoutouts to Tato. It's a fun one. I'm not gonna say more than that. Just go cycle through the radio a few times and go check it out. Real cool song. Tato is pretty good at the music thing, and it's cool seeing someone something community made get added to it. Main menu updates, which if anyone was paying attention at the beginning of the stream, if there was anyone at the beginning of the stream, the main menu does look a bit different, and we'll go over that when we take a look at it again. New cosmetics, added patch and pin bundle for Tato, code Tato. Shoutouts Tato, Tato live. I think he's live right now even. But yeah. Alright, last part, bug fixes. Fix an issue where AI would no longer make idle noises for clients after being alerted. Oh. Oh. Not realize that was a thing. I'm glad that that's fixed. It's probably why there were some silent enemies. But yeah. Fixed a bug where the spider could eat a player after they had been rescued, also known as the heart attack bug. Honestly, this was a really funny bug in the game where people will just kind of fall over randomly and die. Obviously, it sucks for the person that it happens to, and especially when you're going on a run. But it's really funny. I have a clip of Conchas dying in the metro carriage while due to this bug. And people have uploaded clips on my Discord of them dying to this. And as funny as it was, it's good that this is fixed, because this is a pretty big one. Because with this bug in the game, it meant that if you got cocooned by a spider, then you could just die at any time during the run, no matter, like, even if you're safe. So, good. Fixed an exploit allowing repeated visits to the Pentagon by saving/loading after leaving. Why anyone would actually want to do this, I mean, I guess if you wanted to play a Pentagon only run, then by all means, but good that this is fixed. You're only supposed to be able to go there once. Maybe I should have done a Pentagon only run before they fixed that, but could always down patch, but I'm not going to down patch. Fix an issue where the camera could remain inverted after being unwebbed. Didn't even know this was a thing. But only because I don't die to spiders. At least in multiplayer. I guess I died to spiders in solo. But imagine dying to a spider, couldn't be me. Anyway. Fix an issue where alarmed doors could remain stuck in an active alarm state. That sounds really annoying. Glad that's fixed. Haven't seen it personally, but it's clearly happened, so. Fix the lantern to properly remove warmth benefits when dropped and grant them when picking up an already toggled on lantern. So I guess there was an exploit with lanterns where you can kind of share the warmth benefits in v13.12. Not supposed to be able to do that, so it's gone. Fix an issue where entities could see players through open doors. I've heard many people say that this was a thing. I thought it was placebo, but I guess it's definitely an actual thing, so good that that's fixed. Fix an issue with debt calculation introduced in v13.10. Apparently, nightmare mode wasn't scaling properly once you get into the later levels or something. So I'm glad this is fixed. This will make the debt calculations a bit more predictable in v1400, assuming that this works, and I'm pretty sure it does. And the elevator and tunnels now functions in escape mode even when the power is out. Oh, interesting. Even when the power is out, huh? So that means solo tunnels escape is now possible, which means I'm gonna have to do a solo tunnels escape. I haven't done escape mode since it first got released to the live version. And the thing about that is the escape mode when it first went live is a lot easier than current escape mode, because current escape mode has all enemies spawn in immediately, which was the intended spawns for escape mode, but it wasn't that way when it was first launched, because escape mode was also launched with, or no, it wasn't that way. Maybe at launch too, but definitely when the difficulty scaling was introduced, because I think the difficulty scaling was messing with the escape mode spawns. But yeah, escape mode is as hard as ever, so going to tunnels for escape is probably the more difficult one now. But this probably means that tunnels, like, you can actually escape from tunnels, because I remember at the beginning when escape was first released that there was a bug with escape tunnels anyway, but I guess they must have fixed it by then. So we'll check that out sometime. Probably not tonight, because tonight is a bunker night. Stand strong, workforce. America endures through your service. America endures through your service. The survival of the country is based on this. That, or, you know, this is just some ECD propaganda. I'm assuming that the stuff that we see here is also kind of curated by the ECD. You're about to see, like, Conspiracy Brain Austin come out. I don't put a lot of stock into conspiracy theories in the real world, but I think a little bit of conspiratorial thought process will go a long way when it comes to debunking or figuring out Forsaken Frontiers lore. But yeah. Oh, this is important too. ECD command verification 55329-B. I feel like this is going to be important somehow. I'm not entirely sure how yet. Maybe there's like a passcode that we have to input somewhere. 55329-B. We'll figure it out. Have to hydrate a little bit. But anyway, patch notes. Biggest update to date. Wow, it took me 46 minutes to go over this. I might make this a separate video. Cause who's gonna watch a gameplay like 46 minutes of no gameplay for people who click on this one in gameplay? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Separate 46-minute video. If you want to go watch my actual playthrough of the bunker, maybe I'll do a double upload tomorrow. Screw it. I'll upload this plus my initial first look and actually play tomorrow. But yeah, if I do that, check out the channel to see if it's there. Bunker, first look at bunker, gonna be up on the channel. If not now, then soon. All right.